All right, man, Gray. So we're back at it. Do you know what day it is, by the way?
I mean, it's Talking Preps overtime day. That is
It,
always a great day.
I was going to say it's Wednesday. This week is going by, and here in the studio tonight, we've got a tremendous guest to bring to all you guys here on the Talking Preps Overtime podcast. Hey, without any further ado, I just want to go ahead and bring it brought out and start out and welcome Transformation Church Pastor Derwin Gray, also who has a new book, God, Do You Hear Me? Sir, welcome to the program. We appreciate you taking some time to come here today.
Hey, thank y'all for having me, man. I appreciate it, and over the years, I've just come to just love the football in the Carolinas, and having a son that played and is now in college. I'm always keeping up on stuff that's going on, so I'm excited to be with y'all.
Definitely, Pastor. I mean, again, I'll reiterate. I mean, we're thankful that, you're taking time out of your busy schedule to come on here to speak with us. First, we want to start traditionally how we do here on the podcast, and just want you to share your background with the viewers and just kind of discuss, your life and how it's taken you to the point you're at currently.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and my mom was 16 when she was when she was pregnant with me. My dad was 17, so both of them were babies having a baby. They both struggled with various issues, and so my grandparents primarily raised me. I grew up in a high-risk environment. Of course, back then I wouldn't have said that because that's just the way it was. And so grew up on welfare, lots of dysfunction, lots of brokenness. Not to say life was miserable, but it was what it was. At about age 13, I told my grandmother, I said, I don't want to be like this environment that I'm in. And I knew for me, football was not only a sport I love, but football could take me to college and get me out of where I was. And so I went to a high school called Converse Judson in San Antonio, Texas. And I still think to this day we got the most state championship appearances, the largest classification. So at Judson, man, we won, but we never talked about winning. What we talked about were the things that allow you to win, not just on the field, but life. Like we talked about teamwork. We talked about sacrifice. We talked about selflessness. We talked about discipline. And so those were the things that we talked about. So not only did we win games, but we became better people. And I ended up getting a football scholarship to Brigham Young University. I played with Ty Detmer, who won the Heisman Trophy in 1991, played for another Hall of Fame coach, Lavelle Edwards. I went on there to be one of the greatest defensive backs to ever play there. Got drafted, 92nd pick in the 1993 draft by the Indianapolis Colts. Played for the Colts for 5 years. And my third year there, I was actually a special teams captain, contributed heavily in nickel and dime, and really, really played well. But at the end of that third year, it was kind of like life hit me. It was like, okay, I accomplished all my dreams. I got to do things I never thought I could do. But yet there was like this background noise of saying there's got to be more to life. There's got to be more, because I couldn't forgive my dad, who I felt like abandoned me. I couldn't love my wife the way she deserved to be loved because I was afraid of true intimacy. Intimacy means into me you see. So I was afraid of that. And I knew that there were things that I needed forgiveness for. And the more I tried to do good things to make up for the bad things, the worse it got. But I had a teammate. His name was Steve Grant, but his nickname literally was the Naked Preacher, because every day after practice, he would wrap a towel around his waist and ask my teammates, do you know Jesus? I thought that was the weirdest thing ever. And one day he asked me that question. And several years later, that led to me actually coming to faith in a dorm room my fifth year in the NFL and training camp in Anderson, Indiana. And my life has never been the same. Played 5 years with the Colts, signed as a free agent with the Carolina Panthers. And I said, I will never live in the southeast of the United States of America. I will never, by the way, never tell God what you will never do. And so we came here. I hurt my knee in the third game, so I had to rehab my knee and read the Bible. That's pretty much what I did. But in the midst of that, I actually went to a middle school and I was giving a motivational talk to the students. And at the halftime game of the 1998 Carolina Panthers versus the San Francisco 49ers here in Charlotte, they showed a clip of me talking to the kids. And at the end of it, the whole stadium stood up and began to applaud. It was literally the loudest ovation that I had ever gotten in professional football, and I wasn't in the game playing. And so that was kind of like a future indication of what God had in store for me. And so eventually, my wife and I started a church called Transformation Church right outside of Indian South Carolina. We are an intentionally multi-ethnic church, socioeconomically diverse church. We love Jesus. We love people. We started a grocery store. We've made over close to 200,000 backpack meals for kids in our community. We work with the police department. God's doing some amazing things. And I tell people all the time, it was easier to tackle Barry Sanders than it is to pastor a church, but I'm grateful.
Hey, Pastor, I'm going to jump in here. I know Greg still has some more questions, but one of your answers kind of took me off course, and I wanted to expand upon that. And truthfully, I think it could be a completely another podcast that we can talk about. But I coached in Texas. I spent time in the Army in San Antonio and up at Fort Hood. So I'm very familiar with Converse Judson, the Rockets, by the way, and Coach Rutledge, who I've read a lot of books on. So, and you know, his classroom that he put players through. And
yes,
I'm very curious at just how the classroom, because I've read a lot of books about that, how that just in itself changed your life and probably changed a lot of players' lives.
Yes, man. Hey, brother, you speaking my language now. And so one of the things that we did at Judson, and when I transferred there as a sophomore, you know, I hear about this incredible program. And the next thing I find is we're in a classroom and we're reading leadership quotes from John Maxwell, Zig Ziglar, and we're getting indoctrinated with all of this leadership stuff. Before we touch the field, we spent a week learning leadership. Coach Rutledge is like, he is a dad to me. I talk to him at least once a month. And what made us great was not simply we had great players, which we did, but there was a deeper core. Like, he really understood that coaching is ministry, that the goal of coaching is if you make great football players, that's awesome. But the goal is to make great men and young women who now play great people for society. And that has never, ever left me. So my senior year, we played in a state championship against a school called Dallas Carter. Now, we won because they had an ineligible player, but on the field, it wasn't even close. From my senior year, 10 of the 11 starters on defense played Division I, and 3 of us played in the NFL, and Dallas Carter still blew us out. But the thing is, what made us who we were, that made our talent exponential, was the classroom time that went into boot camp. What we did at Judson for boot camp was amazing. And then here's another thing too, is when we were at football practice and you were not in a drill, we all had to cheer and applaud whoever was in the drill. There was none of this selfishness stuff. Like, there was none of this, I'm trying to get my scholarship. Coach Rutledge didn't even give us our letters from colleges until the end of the season, but they were taking care of us. And in today's world, it's like, and I say this humbly, and I say this from experience, oftentimes kids and parents play high school football to get a scholarship instead of how do I make this school better? And the byproduct is if I'm talented, I get a scholarship. So it's one that I'm transactional. I'll do this for that versus transformational. I'm going to give it my best because I want this school to be the best that it can be. But Coach Rutledge really formed me into the man and leader that I am today.
Wow. I mean, there are so many gems in that response, but definitely kind of wanted to switch gears here. You know, you make it a point to reference that your church is multicultural and multi-ethnic, you know, even through your published book, you know, focused on that topic. Could you kind of talk about that book and even talking about how tough it is to lead a church in that way, specifically a multicultural church in such a politically charged world?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. And so I'm a person who didn't grow up in church. I learned my leadership from Hall of Fame coaches in high school and college. And so the thing that surprised me when I was a Christian is people didn't understand that the church is like Jesus's team, right? And pastors are like the coaches, and the staffs are the assistant coaches, and the congregation are the players. And the coaches are player coaches as well. And so I couldn't understand why people didn't understand that, well, God has given us a vision. Jesus not only died for people's sins, but he created a family with different colored skins. That when we get to the new heavens and new earth, there's not a white section, a black section, a Latino section, a Asian section. No, it's going to be a multi-ethnic community. So what we're going to do in eternity in the new heavens and new earth, we need to do in the present now. And so for my wife and I, it was so weird to us that we would read the Bible and then we had to choose between white church or black church. And we were like, wait, no. As we read the Bible, we see Jews and Gentiles and their lives have been transformed by Jesus. And as they love each other, more people want to be a part of that. And so when we started Transformation Church in 2010, we led with a vision that this isn't Derwin's idea. This isn't President Obama's idea. This isn't Donald Trump's idea, President Trump's idea. This is Jesus's idea. And we cannot let politics divide what Jesus bled and died to unite. And so as a pastor, I have to teach our people how to critically and lovingly think, and that it's very reasonable for Christians to disagree upon political issues. My question is, what do we agree upon, and what are we doing about it? So if pro-life in the womb is your thing, then we here at Transformation Church have ministries where we are ministering to people so that they can have their kids. If your issue is immigrants at the border, we have partnerships with people. Whatever it is, we don't believe Democrats nor Republicans have the corner of the market on what Jesus wants to do. We believe the Bible informs us of that. And so is it challenging? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. But when the stakes are so high, of course it's difficult. Like, we're dealing with some serious things that requires this. It requires, number one, an incredible amount of love for human beings. Listen, as long as you have breath in your lungs, there's a chance that we can get along. There's a chance that God's grace can change both of us. As long as we're willing to listen to each other. And so what I would say is, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but we spend too much time on Facebook instead of the good book.
Amen.
We allow news, and listen, I've worked with the media. I'm for the media, particularly local media. But media that's partisan based is no longer media, it's propaganda. And people have to learn how to think. And if you're a follower of Christ, and I know not everybody listening is, but for those who are, we have to think more Christianly, which means, how am I reasonable? How am I loving? How am I compassionate? And so back to the initial question is, when someone wants to meet with me and they ask, well, why do you talk about race so much in your messages? And I'll say, well, because the Bible does. And so being willing to sit down with people and be unoffendable is so important. So as a pastor, what I believe as Team Jesus, if we don't give the example of how to love each other in this chaos, there's no hope for clarity in the confusion.
Wow. Excellent response there, Pastor. Thank you for that. I mean, I feel like I'm sitting here on Sunday watching one of your live streams, so I appreciate you being on here with us. Just incredible stuff. I kind of shift gears a little bit. Your son, he gave up football after working so hard to really form a career and to do so well, and quit it even after receiving a scholarship to Wake Forest. So from a father's perspective, can you talk or elaborate on just how that was for you, how hard it was for you to see him give it up, and how you supported him through that?
Yeah, yeah. So my son, um, Jeremiah, has always kind of marched to the beat of a different drum. He has always just been very thoughtful, very intentional. And then particularly after his sophomore year, like Jesus really grabbed a hold of his heart. And so the one thing that I would say about my son is I've never seen a high school football player work as much intentionality and discipline. So with him in seventh grade, he was like 5'9" with a size 14 shoe. And I was like, son, you're going to grow into your body. And when you do, everybody in the country is going to be knocking down your door. Just be patient. Are you willing to work when you don't see the results? And he was. And so by the time of his junior year, senior year, he was doing incredible things, but God was grabbing a hold of his heart. And so when he got to Wake Forest, he was having a great camp. He was working with the first team and second team, and he still wasn't even 100%. But at 6'1", 205, low 4'5", long as all get out, like they wanted to see him play. And so he was playing well. I actually went to one scrimmage just to see how he was doing. And I knew he was going to grade out high, and he graded out the third highest. And I was like, son, the little things that you did were huge. Like, you're going to grade out high. Well, a couple days go by, and he calls his mother and I, and he says, Mom and Dad, he said, I'm really good at football, but I don't love it. What I love is learning foreign languages. I want to study internationally, and I want to leverage my life as a missionary in the business community or maybe law. I'm not sure yet, but football's getting in the way of that. And so we gave him some time to think about it, to pray about it. And once he said, no, I'm ready to move. As a dad, I was at the place because I had seen how much his heart had changed, how much his desires had changed. And he was literally becoming a new person. It was very similar to what happened to me between my fifth and sixth year in the NFL. Your passions just change. And man, like, of course, his mother and I both cried. Like, like we worked really hard. But it was more of like, man, what incredible confidence for an 18-year-old who had a dad who played in the NFL to say, no, I'm really good. I'm balling. But this isn't what I believe God's calling me to do with my life. And so emotionally, it was like, okay, this is the end of kind of an era, but the new beginning to something else. And so, Lord, help me to be able to support and encourage my son. And I am so proud of him. He has a 3.9 GPA now. He knows 4 languages. He's pre-law. His faith is strong. He makes me want to be a better man when I'm around him. Now, if he would have decided to give up football and do some other things when he was a freshman, I'm not sure how I would have handled that, because I think at that point, more of my identity was in, man, my son, this dude is going to be elite. And he is, but not just in the way I thought he was going to be.
He's an elite man, and I can appreciate. It sounds to me like he's a young man that knows exactly what he wants in life. So, to me, that's even more impressive for him and for you as the father. But you kind of alluded to this earlier. That you obviously you talked about playing at BYU. You played in the National Football League, and sometimes football can be the most furthest thing from a godlike sport. It's very violent. It's a very tough sport. How did you kind of find God through a game like football, and how that changed you?
Yeah, so when I became a Christian, a follower of Jesus, I had some really, really good mentors. And one of the things that I learned early on is that everything you do in life can be an act of worship except for sin. So if you work in corporate America, that's an opportunity to worship through the work of your mind and your hands. Football may be a violent sport, but it's still a conduit for people to be able to express their faith. And the way I would say express your faith, it's more than just at the end of the game, the reporter says, hey, tell me about the game. And you go, I want to thank Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. Like, that's cool, right? But I think what shows your faith more is the way you hustle, unrelenting effort, physical toughness, sacrificial effort, leading your team in word and in action. And then off the field, how are you making the community better? But as far as physicality, when I became a Christian, if I gave all I had and I was physical and done my job, I was doing that to the glory of God. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I want to play as hard as I can, because now I really see life, that football is a gift. And then to be one of the few people out of 8 billion people in the world to do it, that's what I think an act of worship actually is doing the best you have that you can with what you have for God's glory. I think football, like anything, removes from being worship when it's done with selfishness, when it's done with the intent of hurting other people and those types of things.
One quick football question. I know Coach Grice has some questions as well. How much do you still follow high school football? Obviously, you come from Judson and Texas. We both know how big Texas football is. You played it at the most elite levels in college and professionally. But how much do you watch high school football? And particularly, how much have you seen football here in Charlotte improve?
Yeah, so number one, on Twitter, I follow Converse Judson the whole time. I follow Langston Works on Fridays. I follow Charlotte Preps. I follow it a lot. And so number one is, since I got to Charlotte, the high school football has gotten so much better. Charlotte has a lot of Power 5 football talent. There are some dudes, like I was at Audrey Kell. My daughter was at Audrey Kell when the Aquaro brothers were there. My son is freshman year at Audrey Kell, played with Julian Aquaro. So both those guys are now in the league together on the same team. I remember Elijah Hood. After one carry, I looked at my wife and I said, that's a future NFL running back, And so I have enjoyed it. With my son playing at Charlotte Christian, I would put their coaching staff up against any coaching staff that I've ever been around. The attention to details and the ability. In years past, Charlotte Christian did have guys like my son and Obi Agbuna and Garrett Schrader, but the kids who are non-Power 5, their meticulous attention to details and the defensive coverages they were able to run was incredible. That was a sign of coaching. So the football has gotten better. And also, like, I am super excited about what Joe Evans is doing at South Met. I mean, like, he has literally done a resurrection work. I sent him a text the other day, and I'm like, Coach, man, you doing some resurrection stuff over there, man. You guys at South Met are about to win a conference championship. So I just sent him some encouragement. And so I really enjoy the high school football. What I'm waiting for this year is I'm waiting for Huff, who every year has 8,000 D1 players, to actually win a state championship. Like, I'm not throwing any shade at all. I'm just, here's the facts. Every year they got a boatload of kids that go to college. Is this the year that they're going to win it all?
Yeah, that's a question I think a lot of us are wondering, and something that we'll have to see over these next 5 to 6 weeks. Again, as we've done with this show so far, we're going to shift gears again. As we know, Proverbs 18:22 tells us that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Can you talk about your good thing, your wife, Vicky Gray, and how instrumental she's been in your life?
Oh, man, y'all going to make me cry now, man. I wasn't ready for all this. Langston didn't tell me y'all was going to get all up in my heart and everything. Man, wow. Okay. Woo, okay, so, so second semester freshman year, January 15th, 1990, I meet my wife, and we've been together ever since. I was 18, she was 19. And we've been together 32 years, married 29 years. And so, met her. She was in the weight room, lifting weights. She was on the track team, so she threw the javelin. And the BYU weight room was usually just filled with people, but this time it was just me and her. I didn't know her. And she was doing triceps extensions. And I ain't gonna lie, this is before I was a Christian. I seen her triceps and I said, man, we could create some elite athletes. And my next thought was, I hope she asked me for a spot. And she did. And I gave her a spot and then boom, she was gone. And then I seen her a little time later on the basketball court because she was first team all state. She actually had the state record in Montana for 3-point shots. And I'm like, who is this girl? And I was real courageous, so I asked one of my teammates to ask her if I could talk to her. And so we sat down and we started talking, and she told me she had a boyfriend. I was like, cool. Seen her one more time, and she's like, I don't have a boyfriend no more. And then we've been together like ever since. But what really attracted me to her is, number one, she was focused. Number two, she worked hard. She was disciplined. She had goals. Of course, she's beautiful. But man, just epic, right? And so she was valedictorian in high school, valedictorian in college. So we got married in college, and neither one of us were followers of Christ. She became a follower of Christ about 6 months before me or so. And she is like if we're Pippen and Jordan, I'm Pippen, she's Jordan. Just incredible character. I've watched her bring our children into the world. She gets violently ill when she's pregnant, and I've watched her sacrificially do that. We started the church together. She's an incredible mom, incredible wife, incredible disciple of Jesus, incredible leader. And, I'm super grateful that God saw fit that at 18 and 19 we would meet and just connect. And what's odd, though, is neither one of us are Mormon, but we meet at the Mormon flagship school, Brigham Young. I mean, the odds of that happening are pretty minuscule. And so we even see incredible significance on that. But my wife is my best friend. She's my number one counselor, the love of my life. And I'm just super, super grateful for her. I'm glad that we've literally grown up together.
That is phenomenal. Definitely. Kind of continuing down the path, discussing, your church. One of the main, core values of your church is people over production, basically stating that you're valuing people for more than just what they produce. In today's society, even, of course, you being, alumnus of the National Football League, that is counterintuitive to how a lot of people operate. How has that shift been for you? And then also, have you experienced challenges within your church as a result of this?
Yeah, so I'll answer the last part first. Is it's very hard even for our staff to understand people over production because it's so counterintuitive, right? So it's a challenge. It's a work in progress. The way this developed is in 1998, I was playing with the Carolina Panthers. I forget who. I think we were playing the Vikings, and I lined up wrong on a particular defense. One of their running backs popped through, and I couldn't catch him, and he scored. Now, in the NFL, after you win a game, man, the coaches come in and shake your hand. If you lose, they don't even say nothing. So I'm in my 6th year. We lost the game. I didn't play good. And the defensive coordinator, whom I will not name, but if you can check, you'll know who it is. He walked within 3 steps of me, looked at me in disgust, and just turned away. And I thought to myself, if I'm ever in a position to lead people, even when people don't perform as I think they should, they're still intrinsically valuable. And so that became one of the values here at Transformation Church, people over production. And what that means is that what you do is not the most important part of you. The most important part of you is who you are as an image bearer of God and who you're becoming. So we believe that if you are encouraged, if your character's formed, you will actually be more productive. And so that's where that comes from. But you're right. We do live in a world that puts a price tag on what you do and not so much on who you are. And I think that's why we see so many, just moral failings, whether if it's, I just got called the way it is, whether if it's Urban Meyer up in a bar with a or whatever it may be, and we see it all the time in pastors. We see it in government leaders. We see it all the time that character matters. And so what I say here to our staff and our church is this: make sure that your gifting is always chasing your character. Because if your character's chasing your gifting, you're a train wreck waiting to happen. As a follower of Jesus, our character is formed by the Spirit of God inside of us as we pray, as we obey, as we trust God, as we serve, as we're compassionate. God is more concerned about our character than what we do.
Wow. Incredible. You mentioned that, and obviously, we've established you played with the Carolina Panthers. Do you think that the Panthers should potentially go after someone like Deshaun Watson? And do you feel like he would be able to overcome the allegations that are there against him that is currently clouding his participation in the NFL?
Woo, man. Well, let me just say this. I am sure glad Derwin Gray does not have to make that decision. So we do live in the United States of America, and we do believe guilty, or we do believe innocent till proven guilty. I haven't looked at the case. I don't know the evidence. On the surface, it looks one way, but I think we have to wait until due process happens. And let's say if it comes up that he is guilty of these charges, I do believe in second chances, but there has to be accountability. There has to be discipline. There has to be incredible recovery and rehab, so to speak, because playing in the NFL is not an entitlement. It's a privilege. And so I think we have to allow due process. Like, there's never been any doubt about the man's talent. I mean, the man is incredibly talented, but we have to wait until these allegations are worked through.
Good point. Couple quick NFL questions. Just so we got to talk Panthers, we got to talk football. What do you think about Sam Darnold and maybe Christian McCaffrey? Obviously, he's been injured. Production's been down, but when he's in. He means a lot. But maybe talk about those two guys.
Yeah, so I think Sam Darnold has all of the tools that you need to be successful, but he's still a young quarterback and he's still shell-shocked. And so if you don't have a defense that can flip the field for him, and if you don't have a very good running game, you're going to put the ball in his hands. Even the year he came out at USC in college, I want to say he threw like 19 to 22 picks in college. That should never happen in college the way college football is today. So that tells me that he is turnover prone, but you got to have an elite running game. Now, obviously, I'm not a general manager. I don't get into all that stuff. But what I will say is this. In today's NFL, the big money has to be spent on offensive line, quarterback, DN, and cornerback, because this is a pass league. The rules are designed for you to throw the ball. And so if you have a lot of money tied up into a running back, how is that going to affect the O-line? In today's game, it's running back by committee. And, that's why running backs rarely go in the first round anymore, because of the nature of the game. So it'll be curious this off season if the Panthers feel like they need to distribute some of the money that's in running back and put it throughout the roster, because in today's pass-happy league, assets are just utilized differently now.
I agree 100%. I mean, I think that's, been a hot button topic amongst Panther fans around the city. So definitely glad to get your take on that. Pastor, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, I felt like we touched so many topics, and, I hope the viewers have gotten so much out of this, as much as I have, and I know Guru has as well. we can't let you depart without giving you the opportunity, to tell us about your latest book. I see it up there on your shelf, and I would love to hear from you about your book, God, Do You Hear Me? So please take this time.
Yeah, thank you. So my latest book is called God, Do You Hear Me? Discovering the Prayer That God Always Answers. Prayer is difficult. Prayer is challenging. And so what I've tried to do is to write a simple, easy to read book with a lot of richness in it. I share a lot of my football stories, a lot of my life stories in it to really help people learn how to pray. If I can say one thing, I want to help people move prayer from, oh no, God, I'm in trouble, let me pray, to prayer is a natural rhythm of my life. And I've written this book so that can happen. My prayer life changed as a result of writing this book.
Wow. Well, everybody, this is Pastor Derwin Gray again. Thank you so much for your time. I got a lot out of this. It's been very touching for me, and I'm sure Bryce can say the same. I hope everybody else has gotten as much out of this as I have, because if that's the case, this is going to be the best podcast we ever did. But again, we appreciate you being so gracious with your time, and thanks for coming on and talking some ball with us today.
Thank you guys as well. Let's see if Huff gets it done this year.
All right, guys. Let's talk with Preps OT. Pastor Derwin Gray.